She gave her innocence to an ice-cold billionaire, but her big secret shocked him. At 23, Elizabeth Boyle carried a secret no one could see, a heart too fragile for first love and first touch. She thought it would stay hidden forever, until the night she met Theodore de Vries. He had power, money, women, and the kind of dangerous charm that could ruin a girl like her in a single glance. But when his eyes locked on hers, she realized this wasn't just attraction. This was the beginning of everything, and the end of her carefully guarded life. Elizabeth never thought love could come at such a cost. Her borrowed heart stuttered in her chest as the ambulance tore through the night, sirens wailing like a warning she should have listened to. And through the blur of pain, one image remained: him. The Miami night pulsed above the city, heat rising off the rooftop, music pounding through the walls, laughter as hollow as the champagne glasses that clinked in the dark. Perfume, sweat, money, it all mixed into the same restless haze. But Theodore's eyes didn't leave the girl at the edge of the terrace. At 33, Theodore de Vries had it all, but none of it touched the void inside him. Not the victories, not the bodies, not the billions, until he saw her. And the world didn't just stop, it surrendered. Elizabeth stood frozen at the edge of the terrace, torn between running and staying. Her eyes flicked back over her shoulder to the glittering crowd inside. She never should have come here. But what choice did she have? And then she saw him, the tall, devastatingly handsome man cutting through the crowd, his gaze locked on hers. Her breath caught. It's starting, she thought. But the real question was, what would she do now? Because it was already too late to run. She wasn't dressed to seduce. Her beauty whispered instead of shouted. The black silk clung to her like it belonged, moving with every breath she took. And in that breath, he felt something he hadn't in years. She stood with her back to the party, marble railing cool against her bare arms, the city lights flickering below. The breeze teased the hem of her dress, a flash of thigh, a slip of shoulder, a secret invitation she never meant to send. Her stillness was violent, charged, magnetic, as if the night itself was holding its breath. She didn't check her phone, didn't sip her drink. She waited, unknowingly, for a presence she could almost feel behind her. And in the shadows, someone was watching, someone who'd orchestrated every detail of this moment. And Theodore moved toward her, not because he wanted to, because he had to. You're either lost or pretending to be, he said, stopping beside her. She didn't look at him right away. She just smiled faintly, eyes still on the skyline. I prefer watching from the edges, she said. Her voice was low, smooth. It's quieter here. He glanced at her profile. Her lips were full, curved in thought, eyes dark and distant, with a glint of something defiant beneath the stillness. Her skin, a warm, sun-kissed bronze, looked soft enough to bruise, and her voice, deep, husky, like velvet worn too thin, lingered in his mind longer than it should have. It wasn't just what she said. It was the way it sounded, dragging across his spine like smoke and silk. It made him want to hear her say things she'd never said to anyone before. You don't belong to this noise, he said. Neither do I. Now she turned her head, finally meeting his eyes. There it was, the storm, the recognition. You speak like someone who owns it all but feels nothing, she murmured. His breath caught. And you look like someone who hides everything and dares someone to notice. She paused, her lips twitching. Maybe he wanted to touch her. Already. Who are you? He asked, the words slipping out sharper than he meant, almost disbelieving. I've never seen you before. I usually know everyone at these parties. Liz, she said. But Elizabeth works for people who don't want to know me. I do, he said, too fast. She raised a brow. You want to get out of here, he asked, voice low. She studied him, slowly, eyes roaming over his jaw, his collar undone, his hands, veins tight beneath skin, restrained. She nodded once. Yes, the suite upstairs welcomed them with silence. Lights low. Floor-to-ceiling windows poured Miami into the room, golden, sinful, alive. He tossed off his jacket, fingers already itching. You watch movies? He asked, not quite looking at her. She walked in like she belonged, barefoot now, her heels in her hand. Her hips swayed under the silk fabric, her hair messy from the wind. Only the ones that make you feel wrong and right at the same time. He smirked. Turned on the movie unfaithful, erotic, messy, beautiful in its destruction. They sat close, too close. Her thigh brushed his. Neither moved. Minutes passed. Liz shifted uncomfortably under his gaze, her lips parting as she muttered, almost defensive. Why are you looking at me like that? I don't like being stared at. You don't make it easy, Theo murmured, leaning closer. His hand braced against the back of the sofa, as if to claim the space around her. She blinked. Easy to what? Easy to look away. No one's ever hit me like this. Ever. Her breath caught. She turned slightly, tucking a strand of dark hair behind her ear, exposing the vulnerable line of her neck. And if I asked you not to look? She whispered, her thumb grazing her bare shoulder as if by accident. Theo's lips hovered dangerously close, his breath warm against her skin. He whispered, rough and unyielding, right at her ear. Then I'd lie, because I wouldn't stop. Liz lifted her gaze to Theo's, and the moment her eyes met the stormy green of his, heat spread from her chest down to her stomach. Run, Liz. This is your chance. Don't look at him. Don't fall for him. You don't belong here. And Theo felt it, the pull, not just to look, but to touch, to answer her with his hands. Then his fingers brushed across her lips, slow, deliberate, and the world stilled. Theo leaned closer, pausing just a breath away, his voice a husky whisper. Who are you, Liz? He kissed the corner of her mouth, feather-light, then traced down to her neck, his lips and breath burning her skin. Are you real? Her breath hitched, ragged, betraying her. Theo had no idea. No one ever had. She had never even kissed anyone before, never been in love, never even had a boyfriend. And now she sat pressed against Theodore de Vries on the leather couch, his hand brushing her jaw, his presence wrapping around her like heat, while her heart thundered so violently it felt like it might burst free from her chest. The second kiss wasn't soft. It was hungry, desperate. His hand slid to the back of her neck, fingers threading into her short dark hair, pulling her closer until her chest pressed against his. She gasped, breath catching, and when his mouth left hers to trace the line of her jaw, her knees weakened. Her fingers clutched at his shirt, tugging, pulling, needing more. His palm swept down the curve of her back, slipping beneath the loosened strap of her dress, grazing the heated skin of her shoulder. Her breath hitched, sharp, shallow, quick. Theo could hear it, feel it against his throat, and it only pushed Theo further. Their mouths met again. Slower this time, but deeper, deliberate, charged. When he pulled back just to look at her, her eyes were glassy, wide, torn between hesitation and fire. Her lips parted as if she wanted to say something, but no words came. That twinge of fear, that trembling, it drove him mad. Her chest rose and fell too quickly, each inhale uneven, unsteady. It wasn't rejection, it was excitement, it was terror, it was something forbidden crashing all over her. and it made him want to claim her right there, to erase every doubt from her trembling body. But suddenly, she froze. Her eyes darted away. She tore herself back, breaking the kiss. Her hands flew to her chest, covering herself as if she needed a barrier between them. She pulled the strap of her dress back up onto her shoulder with shaking fingers, stepping away barefoot, retreating. "Liz?" Theo's voice was rough, confusion and need tangled in his tone. "What happened? Did I do something wrong?" She shook her head quickly, dark hair falling over her flushed face. Her chest rose violently, breaths coming too fast, almost frantic. "No," she whispered. Her throat worked as she swallowed, eyes darting anywhere but him. "Then why?" His voice cracked low, more plea than question. "Don't go." Her lips trembled as she finally forced the words out. "If I stay, I'll never be able to leave." The room fell silent, except for the ragged rhythm of her breathing. Theo took a step toward her, desperate. But Liz snatched up her clutch and shoes from the floor in one frantic motion. "Elizabeth!" She stumbled backward, then bolted for the door, bare feet silent against the carpet. "Liz!" he called, voice sharp, guttural, breaking. He lunged after her, but the door slammed before his hand even reached the knob. And she was gone. The suite smelled like her, tasted like her. But all he had left was the echo of her breath and the hollow ache of her absence. Morning came late for Theodore, not because he had slept, but because he hadn't. Hours of pacing, of replaying the taste of her lips, the feel of her trembling breath against his throat. Her absence had left the suite hollow. Her name, Elizabeth, echoed in him like a curse. By noon, he had already made 3 calls. "Dark bob, black dress, 20-something. Name's Elizabeth," he repeated, voice clipped. "You seen her?" Every answer was the same. Hesitation, then no. When the 4th call ended in silence, Austin's voice broke the room. "You've lost it, Theo?" Theo stood by the window, staring out at Miami's bright skyline. The glass reflected his figure back at him, untouchable, restless, alone. His thumb pressed against his lower lip, a habit he didn't notice. Austin stepped closer, arms folded. "You've got women lined up at every club in this city, and you're calling me about one girl you don't even know." Theo didn't look at him. His jaw flexed. "I know enough." His voice was low, dangerous. "I know that when she was standing next to me, it didn't feel like noise anymore. It felt like—" He exhaled sharply, shaking his head. "Like I belonged to her, and she belonged to me. That's not something I've ever felt, not once." Austin frowned. "Theo." "I'm serious," Theo muttered, eyes still fixed on the glass, on his own reflection staring back. "I need to find her. If I don't, I'll lose my freaking mind." The room was quiet for a beat, until a vibration on the table broke it. A phone screen lit up. Austin glanced at it, then raised his brow. "Clarice, again, you're not going to answer?" Theo reached for the phone, flipped it, face down. His silence said enough. That night, a knock came at his door. He opened it to the sharp perfume before he even saw her. Clarice, golden hair pinned high, lips red, a bottle of champagne dangling from her manicured fingers. "Darling," she purred, brushing past him without waiting. "I brought something to celebrate." He didn't move. "Celebrate what?" She turned, smile sweet and smug. "Us. 3 years today." Theo's eyes narrowed, his voice low and flat. "Clarice, why are you still here? We've been over this, again and again. There's nothing left. I'm not marrying you. I don't miss you. I don't call because I don't want to." His tone cut sharp. "What more do you need me to say?" But Clarice only laughed softly, shaking her hair loose so the golden strands fell over her bare shoulders. She stepped closer, laying a hand against his chest. "You don't mean that," she whispered. Her nails pressed lightly through his shirt. "You want me." "You always have." Theo pulled back, jaw tight. "No, I don't. I don't even want to sleep with you." Her hand stilled, but her eyes hardened, lips curving in a determined smile. "I don't need anything from you," she said. "I just want to be near you." Before he could answer, her mouth pressed against his. Software demanding. Familiar. Theo didn't push her, not at first, but he didn't kiss her back either. His eyes flicked past her, to the sofa across the room, the same spot where Liz had sat the night before, her bare feet tucked beneath her, her eyes glassy with fear and fire. Clarice's lips moved against his, but his mind wasn't there. His body wasn't there. It was still with Liz, the girl who had filled the emptiness he'd carried for years and then vanished. 1 month later, Miami's summer sun spilled hot light through the wide windows of the waterfront restaurant, catching on the silverware and crystal glasses like a stage set for wealth. Theo sat at the head of the table, every movement measured, every word carrying weight. Across from him, 3 men in tailored suits tapped notes onto sleek iPads, screens glowing faintly in the midday light. "Distribution has to move faster if we want the East Coast locked in by the end of the quarter," Theo said, his voice smooth, commanding. "We don't settle for delays. We control the market or someone else will. Numbers, deadlines, control." It was supposed to be everything, but then, through the glass, the blur of Miami's street life rushed by. Tourists, cars, noise. And in the middle of it, a figure. There. She was walking fast, her short dark hair bouncing lightly with each step. A loose white t-shirt, frayed denim shorts, a backpack slung over one shoulder. Headphones in her ears, lost to her own world. Her legs, bronzed, lean, caught the sunlight. Theo's words stopped mid-sentence. His throat closed. Was it her? Elizabeth. The pen in his hand slipped against the page. The suits looked up, startled, as Theo's chair scraped hard against the polished floor. Excuse me," he muttered, already rising. "Theo," one of them called, confusion spreading around the table. Theo's chair scraped back hard. He didn't care about the startled looks, the unfinished deal. He was already moving, pushing past the host, through the glass doors, into the street, chasing the only thing that mattered. Where was she? There, her hair, glinting in the sun, weaving through the bodies ahead. "Elizabeth," his voice tore out low but urgent. She didn't hear. The music in her ears kept her blind to him. Theo shoved past a man carrying shopping bags, nearly colliding with a couple. "Sorry," he muttered, but his eyes never left her. She turned a corner. He broke into a run, his polished shoes slapping against the pavement, the heat rising in waves around him. "Liz!" His heart thudded, breath sharp, sweat prickling at his collar. But when he rounded the corner, she was gone. The street stretched wide, crowded, merciless. Tourists with cameras, girls laughing, men shouting for taxis, dozens of strangers, but not her. Theo froze, chest heaving. His hand pressed against the brick wall beside him, veins tight under his skin. He scanned every face, every figure. Nothing. She had vanished. Again. And the void inside him, the one he thought she had filled, yawned open, wider than ever. Theo returned to the table. Austin glared at him, his voice sharp. "Do you even realize what you've done? You walked away in the middle of our business deal. Our guests got offended and left." Theo's gaze was distant, his voice low. I saw Liz." Austin exhaled in disbelief. "Liz? For a girl you barely know? You never cared this much about Clarice, and she's probably the only woman who's ever mattered to you, though clearly not much. I've never seen you this shaken over anyone. If this girl is going to pull you apart like this, I already don't like her." Theo said nothing. He only stared out the window, thumb against his lower lip, lost in thought. A moment later, he walked away. 3 hours later, the rain had swallowed Miami whole. Neon signs blurred into streaks on the glass, traffic lights smeared like wet paint. The wipers clawed at the windshield, but the storm refused to be erased. Inside the car, Theo's grip on the wheel was tight, knuckles pale. The silence was suffocating, until his heart jolted. All at once, he saw her. There, a figure on the sidewalk. She walked like she didn't care she was drowning, each step slow. Shorts clung to her legs, rain tracing the lines of her thighs. A thin white t-shirt plastered against her skin, revealing more than it concealed. Dark hair hung heavy, dripping, her earbuds tangled like jewelry against her neck. For a moment, the world tilted. Theo's chest seized, his breath strangled. He pulled the car to the curb, brakes screeching. He shoved the door open and stepped out, rain soaking his shirt in seconds. "Liz!" His voice broke, hands gripping her arms like he'd dreamed of this moment. "I've been looking for you." For a month, Elizabeth froze, staring back at him in shock. Her t-shirt clung to her chest, her breaths sharp, uneven. "We're getting in the car," Theo ordered. His tone was dark, commanding. Elizabeth didn't move. She only looked at him. Theo's jaw tightened. "Don't make me carry you inside, because I will. Tonight, you're coming with me." A long pause. Then slowly, Liz stepped toward the car and slid inside. The engine hummed, rain hitting the glass. Silence. Elizabeth turned her head, just looking at him. Theo flicked her a glance, unsettled by her silence and yet drawn in by it. "Don't look at me like that," he muttered, tension lacing his voice. "Why are you staring?" Her lips curved faintly. "You look different tonight." Theo's pulse spiked. The words cut into him. Liz bit her lip, eyes glinting. She didn't answer. Theo smirked faintly, shaking his head. "You disappear. You stay silent. Are you trying to drive me insane?" No reply. Only the quiet between them. In his house, the lights were low. "Take off those wet clothes," he said, handing her a robe. She obeyed, and soon she was sitting on the sofa wrapped in white, hair damp, face softer than he remembered. She looked different tonight, more defenseless, more innocent, younger somehow. Theo sat across from her, thumb grazing his lower lip, the gesture that betrayed his thoughts. "Who are you, Elizabeth?" he asked. Her gaze flicked away. "No one." "And that night at the party, what were you doing there?" "I just walked in, to look around." Theo stood, crossing the room until he was beside her. His presence pressed the air tight. "For the first time in my life, I'm chasing after a woman," he confessed, his voice low, heavy. "What is it about you? What are you doing to me?" Liz raised her eyes, meeting his. Her lips trembled. "Maybe I'm just here to remind you. You can't always have everything you want." Theo's lips curved into a dangerous smile. He leaned in, inhaling the scent of her skin, his breath hot against her neck. And then he whispered into her ear, "I always get what I want." Her wide eyes locked onto his moss-green gaze, defiant and trembling all at once. "I'm not a toy," she whispered, her voice sharp with the kind of honesty only children dared to speak. "I'm not something you can play with when you want, and toss aside when you're done." Theo's jaw flexed, but his hand softened as it rose. His fingers brushed along the curve of her cheek, tracing her skin like he was memorizing the shape of her. "You don't understand," he murmured, voice low, ragged. "This isn't about sex." His thumb lingered just below her lip, the gesture tender, almost reverent. "I want to know you. You've lit something inside me I thought was dead, an excitement, a hunger I've never felt before." "Not like this." Her breath hitched, shoulders tight, lips trembling as if she wanted to believe him but didn't dare. Theo leaned closer, his words pressing against her skin as much as his touch. "As long as you don't want me to, I won't touch you. But talk to me. Let me understand why you've made me feel this way. I'm just an ordinary girl," Liz said softly, her eyes flicking around the vast room. The chandeliers, the leather, the curated art, all of it screamed a world she didn't belong to. "Clearly, you and we come from different lives. I'm not someone who could ever have anything in common with you." Theo leaned in, his arm braced against the back of the sofa just behind her. His breath mingled with hers, his gaze fixed on her face with raw fascination, as if he could drink her in without ever touching her. Liz's voice trembled as she went on. "You have the power, the charm. You could have anyone you wanted. Why chase me?" Her face turned toward him, lips only inches away, and Theo answered her with a kiss, slow, claiming, inevitable. Liz gasped, then surrendered, her lips moving with his, her body betraying her words. When he pulled back just enough to speak, his voice was a husky confession. "That's what I'm trying to understand, too." Theo's thumb brushed her jaw, tilting her face closer again. "How old are you?" Her lashes lowered, and she whispered, 23. Theo exhaled sharply, dragging a hand through his hair as he leaned back a fraction. "God, so young." "Does that scare you?" Liz asked, her tone fragile but daring. Theo's mouth curved into a dark smile, his green eyes narrowing with something between lust and challenge. "You keep running from me, and yet somehow you manage to provoke me every time. You know exactly what you're doing, don't you? Creating this mystery, making me want more." His voice dropped lower, heavier. "And yes, you're too young. It should make me stop. But my desire, my curiosity, they're louder than my fear." He bent down again, lips brushing hers, hungrier this time. But Liz jerked back, breathless. "I need to go." "No." His answer was instant, sharp. "I can't let you. I mean it," she insisted, rising from the sofa. But before she could escape, Theo's hand closed around her wrist, pulling her back into him. His mouth crushed against hers, rougher now, more demanding, his restraint breaking into raw need. The kiss was fierce, almost violent with need, but Liz answered it. Her lips yielded, trembling but eager, and Theo felt her pulse race against his mouth. "You want this too," he breathed against her lips, his voice rough with certainty. "I can feel it. So why keep running from me?" Her eyes burned, glassy and conflicted. "Because I have to." That broke something in him. Theo's arms swept her up effortlessly, cradling her against his chest. His voice was a dark growl as he carried her toward the bed. "If I have to, I'll tie you down." Liz's breath caught, but she didn't resist. He laid her gently on the sheets, her hair spilling across the pillow, her body small against the vast expanse of the bed. For a moment, he only stood over her, devouring her with his gaze. Then, slowly, agonizingly slow, he reached for the tie of her robe. His eyes never left hers as he parted the fabric inch by inch. And then he saw it, a mark, a thin, pale scar running down between her breasts, delicate yet undeniable. Theo's breath stilled. His fingers hovered, then traced it with reverence, his touch trembling. Liz's chest rose and fell rapidly beneath his hand, every breath quick, shallow, betraying her nerves. Without a word, Theo lowered his mouth to the scar, his lips grazing it with a reverence that felt like worship. Liz shivered, her fingers twisting the sheets, eyes fluttering shut as her body arched toward him, while her secret still burned, unspoken, between them. His kisses traveled upward, tracing a slow path from the fragile mark on her chest to the hollow of her throat, the curve of her jaw, and finally her forehead, each one softer, as if promising she was safe in his hands. He bent to her ear, his breath hot against her skin. "What happened here?" he whispered. Liz stiffened. In one sharp motion, she pulled the robe closed, turning her face and body away from him. Theo froze, watching her, his jaw tightening, but instead of pressing harder, he slid down beside her. He wrapped himself around her from behind, his arm heavy across her waist, his body molding to hers as if to anchor her in place. "Then we'll just stay like this," he murmured against her hair. His hand, though, betrayed him, fingers still resting over the scar, his thumb brushing over it in slow, absent circles, as though he couldn't let go. "Tell me," he breathed. "Tell me everything. I want to know all of you, Liz." Her voice cracked, low, as if dragged from some place she'd kept buried. "I had surgery," she said. "Heart failure. I've had it since I was a child." Theo stilled, his grip tightening as she went on. They gave me a transplant." Silence fell heavy between them. Theo's breath was warm at her nape, his hand still pressed over the faint line that told the story of her survival. Theo pulled her tighter against him, his chest locked to her back, his mouth brushing the soft curve of her neck. His words were low, rough, almost broken. "You don't understand, Liz. We barely know each other, but the way I feel." He pressed a kiss just below her ear, his breath hot. "You couldn't possibly imagine it. I need you, more than I've ever needed anything." His lips lingered at her throat as he whispered, desperate, hungry, "Stay tonight. Don't leave me. I just want to hold you, to breathe you in, to memorize your scent against me." Liz's lashes fluttered shut. A single tear slid down her cheek, unseen in the dark. She tilted her head back just enough for her forehead to rest against his. Neither spoke again. In that fragile silence, bodies entwined, they surrendered, not to passion, but to something heavier, something neither of them dared name. And like that, still bound to each other, they drifted into sleep. Morning bled softly through the curtains, the first light of dawn spilling across the room. Liz stirred, her body tangled in silk sheets, the robe long forgotten on the floor. Theo was still behind her, his arm heavy across her waist, his bare skin pressed against her back, holding her even in sleep. His breath moved slow and steady against her hair, as if he owned the rhythm of her mourning. She turned her head just slightly, just enough to catch him. His scent, warm and masculine, laced with something unnameable. She inhaled, quietly, reverently. Liz had always carried this strange instinct, to memorize people she loved by the way they smelled. And Theo smelled right, like belonging, like the one she could let herself fall into. Her chest tightened, because she knew she couldn't. Every part of her wanted to stay, to sink deeper into his arms, to let him keep her here forever. But another part screamed louder, "Run! Get out before this chaos swallows you whole!" Liz closed her eyes, torn, her heart breaking in silence. She had to leave, before he learned more, before she couldn't leave at all. Liz shifted slowly, carefully, easing her body out from under his arm. She'd almost made it to the edge of the bed when, click. Her breath caught. She looked down. Her wrist was locked in cold steel. "What the hell?" Liz's eyes widened. She yanked at it, rattling against the headboard. "Theo, what the hell are you doing? Unlock this. Now!" Theo stirred behind her, brushing a kiss against her cheek as if nothing were wrong. His voice was maddeningly calm. "Good morning, Liz. Sorry, but I had to make sure you wouldn't run. After last night, after this past month of losing my mind wondering who you are, I can't risk it again." Liz pulled the sheets higher over her chest, fury burning through the fear. "This is unlawful restraint. It's prison time, in case you didn't realize." Theo sat up, turning to face her, eyes narrowed with dangerous composure. He leaned in, his mouth brushing hers in a fleeting kiss before pulling back, then pressed charges. His smile was wicked, But first, kiss me back." He left her with that, sliding out of bed, his body effortless as he dressed. Liz glared, yanking the sheets tighter around her trembling frame. Her voice snapped across the room. "Why the hell do you even have handcuffs in your house? What are you into, Theo? Some kind of twisted kink?" He smirked as he buttoned his shirt, not even glancing back. "A gift? Left them unopened for months. Guess they came in handy." Then he disappeared into the other room. Seconds later, he returned, holding her backpack. Liz's heart spiked. She sat bolt upright, eyes blazing. "No, you don't go through my things. Put that down, Theo." Her voice was trembling, but her glare cut sharp. Theo unzipped the backpack, ignoring Liz's sharp protest. Books slid out heavy and worn, thudding against the sheets. Medical textbooks. Theo stilled, glancing from the bold titles to her flushed face. "You're a med student?" Liz rolled her eyes, lips pressed tight, refusing to answer. Theo's mouth curved into something between awe and a smile. "I knew you were smart. Smarter than you let on." He dug deeper. This time, small orange pill bottles rattled into his hand. His expression shifted, interest, then concern. "Cardiac meds," he murmured, turning one over. "Do you need to take one now? Should I get you water?" Her answer was sharp. "Just unlock me." He ignored her. His fingers closed around a wallet, flipping it open with casual precision. He pulled out the ID card, his green eyes scanning the words. "Elizabeth Sue Boyle," he read slowly, savoring the sound. Then he looked up at her, something unreadable flickering across his face. "So, that's who you are." Liz's jaw tightened, but she stayed silent, clutching the sheet closer. Theo's gaze dropped back to the card, his thumb brushing across the date of birth. His smirk faded. November 12th, 2002. His voice was quieter now, rougher. "Christ, Liz, you're not even 23. The weight of it hung between them. Theo set the wallet down on the nightstand but didn't move away. His head bowed slightly, thumb dragging along his lower lip, shoulders tense with a conflict he couldn't hide. When his eyes lifted again, they stayed fixed on her, long, unblinking, as though she were both the problem and the only answer he had ever found. His fingers pushed his hair back, exhaling through his nose. He looked at her like a man drowning, like youth and danger and purity were a knife pressed to his throat. And for the first time in years, he wasn't sure if he wanted to live or bleed. Liz let out a short laugh, the sound edged with mockery. "You must be pushing 40, she teased, "the way you're treating me like some kid." Theo's lips curved, half amusement, half warning. "I've never had a girlfriend as young as you," he admitted, voice low, almost to himself. "So believe me, I don't know what the hell I'm doing either." Her brows lifted, eyes glinting with challenge. "Careful, just because we fell asleep tangled together doesn't mean I'm your girlfriend." Theo's gaze lingered on her, unreadable, the corner of his mouth twitching into something darker. He lifted a finger and pointed it at her, like a silent verdict. "You don't realize it yet," he murmured, a razor smile breaking through, "but you are." The knock on the door cut through the tension, sharp, insistent. Theo straightened, rolling his shoulders back, already in control again. As he strode toward the door, he glanced over his shoulder. "Do I even need to say, keep quiet?" His tone was light, almost playful, yet threaded with steel. And then the door swung open. Theo pulled the door open and froze. Clarice stood there, perfect as ever in a fitted blazer and heels, her blonde hair tied back in a polished knot. She leaned in before he could react, pressing a quick kiss to his lips as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "Hi, darling. I stopped by your office, but they said you never showed. It's nearly 11. Are you sick? Is something wrong?" Theo's jaw tightened, his brows furrowed as he looked at her, unamused. "Clarice," he said flatly, "you can't just show up at my place whenever you want. Didn't we talk about this? We're done." But she only smiled, her long, manicured nails trailing up to rest on his shoulders. "Sweetheart, we've said that before. We've broken up more times than I can count, and yet here we are, always back together. You know it as well as I do. We can't let go. We have a future. No." The word was sharp, tired. Theo exhaled through his nose, pulling her hands from his body. "We don't. I'm done repeating myself. I don't want this anymore. I don't want you. Please leave. I have work." Clarice's expression flickered. She drew in a slow breath, then tilted her head as if catching something in the air. Her nose wrinkled faintly. She glanced past him, her voice honeyed but edged. "There's a different scent here. What is that?" Theo's eyes hardened. Without a word, he caught her by the arm, not roughly, but firm enough that she had no choice but to follow his lead. He walked her back toward the door, his tone calm, but laced with finality. "Clarice, listen carefully. We are not together anymore. Don't come here again. If you want us to ever look each other in the eye without hate, don't push this any further." Clarice stopped just outside the door, her heels clicking against the hallway floor. Her eyes slid sideways, toward the closed bedroom door behind him. For half a heartbeat, her face was sharp, calculating. Then she painted on a sweet, practiced smile. "You're in a mood this morning, that's all. I'll let this go, for now. We'll talk later, darling." Her gaze flicked once more toward the bedroom, lingering just long enough to make her suspicion obvious. And then, with that same too-bright smile, she turned and walked away. Theo shut the door harder than he meant to. Inside the bedroom, Liz struggled against the cuff, twisting her wrist until the headboard rattled softly. Her breath came fast, panic rising in her chest as voices carried from the front door. "Clarice!" Liz froze, her pulse thundering. "God! She can't know I'm here. She can't." She whispered it to herself like a mantra, tugging harder at the restraint, desperation mixing with fear. The front door clicked shut. Theo appeared a moment later, calm as ever. Too calm. Liz's eyes blazed. "Unbelievable," she hissed. "You have a girlfriend, and you handcuff me to your damn bed? What kind of sick game are you playing?" Theo lifted his thumb to his lips, the familiar gesture calm and deliberate. "It's not what it looks like," he said evenly. "Clarice and I are over. She's just persistent. You heard what I told her." Liz narrowed her eyes, anger flashing. "And if I'd screamed, what then? You'd be exposed, humiliated." He stepped closer, closing the space between them until their breath mingled. His voice dipped low, dangerous, laced with amusement. "But you didn't, did you?" His lips curved into a wicked smile. "You stayed quiet." Liz blew a strand of damp hair from her face, eyes flashing with anger. "So, what now, Mr. Red Flag? What are you going to do with me?" Theo froze for half a second. Then, a crooked, dangerous smile curved his lips. "Mr. Red Flag?" he murmured, leaning closer until his breath brushed her skin. "You'll regret calling me that." He paused, his gaze locked on her lips. "But I can't say I hated it. Coming from your mouth, it sounded..." His voice dropped lower, almost a growl. "Downright intoxicating." Theo's mouth crashed onto hers, hot and demanding, and Liz gasped against him. One hand tangled into his hair, clutching, pulling him closer, while the other fumbled as he slid the cuff key and freed her wrist without breaking the kiss. The moment the metal clicked open, her fingers curled into his hair with desperate force. Their kiss deepened, wild and consuming, until the silk sheet slid away from her body, bearing skin to his fevered touch. His lips trailed to her ear, his breath ragged. "You don't really want to leave, do you?" he whispered, his voice molten. "Me being a red flag, that turns you on, doesn't it?" Liz shivered, her body arching against him, as if betraying her own thoughts. Her mind screamed of chaos, Clarice's face flashing like a warning, the impossibility of what this man meant for her future. But Theo's hands, his mouth, his weight against her, every touch left her defenseless, unraveling. It was like his body had become the answer to questions she didn't dare ask. And in that surrender, she let herself fall deeper into him, unable to resist. Theo's jacket and shirt were gone in moments, his skin burning against hers as though he'd been waiting a lifetime for this. He lowered his lips to her ear, voice husky. "I want your scent on me all day, so the world knows you're mine." Liz surrendered to a pleasure she had never known before. The soft moan that slipped past her lips was nothing more than the waves rising inside her, breaking free. As every muscle tightened, her body seemed to brace itself for Theo's arrival. Her hips lifted toward him in an instinctive motion, and she felt herself yielding to a pressure her body had never experienced. The vibration spread through her in rippling waves, consuming her whole. Theo froze, every muscle locking. His breath stilled against her lips. His hand cupped her face, thumb trembling against her skin. He looked into her eyes, wide now, glassy with fear and fire. "Liz!" His whisper broke, more reverent than shocked. "Why didn't you tell me?" Her chest was rising too fast now, breaths shallow and uneven. For a heartbeat, panic flashed in her gaze. Theo pressed his forehead to hers, scattering soft kisses, her temple, her nose, the corner of her mouth. His voice dropped, softer than a vow, steadier than her racing lungs. "Shh, breathe with me. Slow, I've got you." His fingers threaded through her damp dark hair, stroking gently as though to anchor her. He waited, listening as her breathing slowly steadied against his chest. Only then did his hand slide to the center of her chest, over the faint scar he'd already discovered, feeling the wild rhythm beneath. Slowly, tenderly, his thumb stroked the fragile line. "Give yourself to me, Liz. Trust me." And Liz began to find a rhythm in sync with the pounding of her heart. The line between pain and pleasure slowly blurred. Her lashes fluttered, a single tear caught at the corner of her eye. And then, with a shuddering breath, she let go, her body softening, surrendering. She clung to him not with fear, but with need. And Theo, for the first time in his life, felt like he wasn't just claiming a body. He was being entrusted with a soul. The day had slipped through their fingers like silk. Hours had blurred into warmth, into tangled sheets and whispered breaths. By evening, the light filtering through the curtains was soft and golden, draping them in a haze that felt almost unreal. Liz lay sprawled against Theo's chest, his heartbeat steady beneath her ear. His hand moved lazily along the curve of her back, fingers tracing absent patterns on her skin. When he spoke, his voice was low, intimate, almost afraid to break the spell. "Maybe this is what love feels like," he murmured into her hair. "Strange. I've never been in love before. I always thought it would make me happy. But right now, my chest feels tight, like I can't stand the thought of you leaving my side for even a second." Liz didn't answer, but her lashes fluttered against his skin. Her mind was a storm she couldn't quiet. Theo gently brushed a lock of hair from her face, lifting her chin so their eyes met. His gaze searched hers, fierce yet tender. "Why didn't you tell me that you'd never been with anyone before? Was it because of the surgery? Because it's dangerous for you?" Color rushed to her cheeks. She buried her face in his chest, her voice muffled. "I don't want to talk about it. It just never happened. Shame lingered in the air like smoke. Theo's arms tightened around her, anchoring her, as if to crush the weight of her fears. Liz's eyes wandered then to the nightstand. A framed photograph stood there, a beautiful woman in her 50s, blonde, radiant, her arms wrapped around a younger Theo. Liz's voice was cautious when she asked, "Your mother?" Theo's jaw tensed, his gaze fixed on the ceiling, as if looking anywhere but the picture. "Yes, I lost her 4 years ago. Car accident." Liz's breath caught, throat tightened the moment her eyes fell on the photograph. Her chest ached where her scar lay hidden, and tears blurred her vision before she could stop them. Theo brushed his thumb over her cheek, confused. "Liz, why are you crying? What is it?" She shook her head quickly, forcing a smile that broke in half, lifted her head, meeting the raw ache in his green eyes. No words could mend that grief, so she pressed her lips to his instead, a kiss meant for comfort, not desire. When she pulled back, her voice was quiet but firm. "I can't stay here forever. I have a school, a job, a life I can't abandon." Theo studied her, his hand steady on her shoulder. He leaned in, pressed a soft kiss to the hollow of her neck, and finally gave a small nod, uncertain but unwilling to let her go. "Fine, I'll take you. But promise me this, every time I call, you answer. I need to see you every day, Liz. I can't go one day without you now. Do you understand?" Her throat tightened. Slowly, she nodded. Theo pulled up in front of the boutique, his hands tightening on the steering wheel, eyes still fixed on Liz. "I could help you find something better," he said, voice low but insistent. Liz shook her head, her gaze sliding toward the small shop. "Don't. School already takes everything out of me. I can only work part-time, and this job works for me. If it doesn't fit your world, then maybe you should ask yourself how realistic this girlfriend thing really is." Theo stilled, then turned sharply, catching her wrist before she could reach for the door. His grip wasn't harsh, but it was unyielding. His green eyes burned into hers. "Your eyes, your body. They tell me something completely different than the words leaving your mouth. I'm Theodore DeVries. I don't show feelings. Business always came first. Women threw themselves at me and I didn't care. But now?" His jaw tightened. "Now I don't even recognize myself. I'm in love with you, Liz. Do you really think I'd let anything come between us?" Liz's throat worked as she swallowed, but she didn't break eye contact. "I'm just being realistic." Theo gave a short, bitter laugh. "You can't let go. Not even for a second, can you?" Liz yanked her wrist free, pushed the door open, and stepped out. She lingered just a moment, her eyes soft but steady. "I don't have the luxury of letting go, Theodore DeVries." Then she turned and walked away. Theo leaned back in his seat, knuckles white against the wheel. A dark smile tugged at his mouth, self-mocking, almost cruel. Jesus, she's got me wrapped around her finger like a kid's toy. That night, Liz's boutique shift was almost over. She was folding the last of the dresses when the boutique door flew open. Clarice stormed in like a thunderclap, hair perfectly tossed, expensive perfume announcing her before her heels even struck the floor. The sharp staccato of stilettos echoed against the tiles, every click a warning. Liz's heart lurched, her fingers tightened around her bag. She turned, hoping to slip out unseen, but Clarice's voice sliced through the room. "Elizabeth!" Panic sparked in her chest. Liz forced a smile, walking quickly toward her. Her voice was low, urgent. "Not here. Outside. Now." The moment the door swung shut behind them, Clarice's hand shot out, nails biting into Liz's arm. "You little bitch," Clarice hissed. "You lied to me, didn't you?" Liz's breath caught. "Clarice, wait!" "No!" Clarice's eyes blazed, venom sharp in every word. "That wasn't our deal. You were supposed to tempt him, tease him, report back to me every move he made, then disappear. You weren't supposed to crawl into his life." Liz's lips parted, but nothing came out. Clarice leaned closer, her perfume sharp, suffocating. "I paid you for this, And this morning, I smelled it. Your scent all over his place. Do you know how easy it was to figure out? You were in his bed, weren't you?" Clarice's eyes blazed, her grip tightening on Elizabeth's arm like she might choke the truth out of her. Her voice cut like glass. "You're going to disappear from his life. Do you understand me? You'll vanish. Like you were never here? He might sleep with you, sure, play with you, but that's all you'll ever be to him, a passing thrill." Clarice reached out, twirling a strand of Liz's damp hair between her fingers, her smile razor-sharp. "In this city, with nice women everywhere, why do you think I picked a nobody like you? Sure, you might be his type for now, but you're not on our level. Give it a week, and Theo won't even know what to do with you. Did you really think he'd show you off as his girlfriend? God, you're pathetic." Liz narrowed her eyes, her voice steady despite the tremor in her chest. "What kind of girlfriend sends another woman straight into her lover's arms, Clarice? You pushed me toward him with your own hands. And yes, he noticed me. But I never asked for it. I tried to run. He's the one who chased me." Clarice threw her head back and laughed, sharp and cruel. "Oh, Elizabeth, of course you wouldn't understand. Theo and we've been together for years. He's charming, powerful, insatiable, and I control that. Do you get it? I choose the women he burns through. It gives me the power, because in the end, he always comes back to me. Always. Theo is mine. He knows I'm the best thing he'll ever have. Your little brain can't possibly grasp that." Liz's hand trembled, but she reached into her bag, pulled out the roll of cash, and shoved it into Clarice's palm. "Take it. I don't want your money. This arrangement is over. I'm done." Clarice's grin went sharp, all mockery as she leaned closer. "Over? You think this little deal of ours is over just because you say so? Oh, sweetie, you really don't know who you're dealing with. I can have you thrown out of the boutique you work at in minutes. I can make sure your precious school kicks you out. That tiny, pathetic apartment your family clings to, those buildings are ours. I could put your parents out on the street with a single phone call." Liz's eyes filled with tears, her voice breaking. "What do you want from me?" Clarice hooked a manicured finger under Liz's chin, forcing her face up. Her whisper was venom wrapped in silk. "You're going to pick up that money, and you're going to do exactly what I tell you. If Theo comes near you again, you'll make him ashamed. You'll remind him he doesn't belong in your world, and you don't belong in his. Show him how simple you really are. Make him feel it, until he can't stand the sight of you. Until he remembers who he belongs to." Liz's lips trembled. How am I supposed to do that?" Clarice's eyes gleamed with cruelty. "That's your problem, little bitch. I didn't pay you for excuses. I paid you for results." She spun on her heel, heels striking the pavement like gunshots. As she stalked away, her voice rang out sharp and final. "You have 1 week." The train rattled toward North Miami, the windows smeared with the reflection of tired faces. Liz leaned her forehead against the cool glass, eyes burning but refusing to let the tears fall. Clarice's words still echoed in her skull like poison. Her stop came, an aging block of low-rise apartments, paint peeling, the kind of place where people worked hard and stayed quiet. She walked the cracked pavement past rusted mailboxes and sagging porches, clutching her bag tighter. Inside one of those apartments waited her parents, ordinary, decent people who had given everything for her. Her father spent his days behind the wheel, driving Clarice's uncle like he was invisible. Her mother worked double shifts at a diner, hands raw from scrubbing. And Liz was supposed to be their future. The heart surgery that had saved her 4 years ago had nearly broken them in debt, but they'd never once let her feel the weight of it. She had to carry it herself, study harder, work longer hours at the boutique, push through exhaustion because one day she would wear the white coat, scalpels in hand, a surgeon. That was the plan. That had always been the plan. But Theo wasn't part of the plan. and now everything felt like it was unraveling. The clink of silverware and the low hum of conversation filled the restaurant, but Theo barely noticed. His phone sat face up beside his plate, screen lighting up with every meaningless notification. None of them were hers. Austin leaned back in his chair, watching him with a mix of irritation and concern. "Don't tell me. You're still waiting on that girl." Theo's jaw tightened. He didn't look up. "You wouldn't get it," he muttered. Then his voice dropped lower, almost like a confession he couldn't hold back. "It's not just wanting her. It's more. With Liz, I feel desire, yes, but also this pull. Like I'd burn the world down if it meant keeping her safe. I've never felt both at once." Austin frowned. "That sounds less like love and more like obsession." Theo finally lifted his gaze, eyes sharp, restless. "Maybe, but it feels like I've known her forever, and yet she's still a mystery. Do you understand what that does to a man? It's like an addiction, and I can't quit." Austin leaned back in his chair, swirling the wine in his glass, with that knowing smirk Theo had seen 100 times. "You know how it is, Theo. Everyone outside our circle feels different because we've lived in a bubble our whole lives. Same schools, same country clubs, same parties. She's ordinary. That's the only reason you're intrigued. It's exciting now, sure, but for how long? You'll get bored." Theo's jaw tightened, his thumb tapping against the edge of the table. His voice was low, sharp. "You don't get it. This isn't just some passing thrill. With her, I feel real, alive. It's not something you measure in last names or bank accounts." Austin raised a brow, leaning back farther. "All I see is another obsession. And if there's one thing you're famous for, Theo, it's burning through obsessions. Let's see how long this one lasts." Theo stepped outside after dinner with Austin, Miami's night air heavy with salt and rain. He pulled out his phone, thumb hovering only a second before pressing call. It rang. Once, twice, 3 times. No answer. Across town, Liz's phone lit up in her hand as the subway rattled along the tracks. Theo. Her hand trembled over the screen. She didn't need to hear his voice to know the truth. If she did, she'd belong to him all over again. Her parents' faces flashed in her mind. Her father's tired hands on the steering wheel after double shifts. Her mother's quiet worry every time Liz's heartbeat stuttered. Clarice's threat echoed like a blade pressed against all of them. Liz pressed the screen, dark with trembling fingers. She stared out the window, her reflection pale against the glass, her heart pounding with a mix of longing and dread. Theo glanced at his phone, frowning when the call went to voicemail. His jaw flexed. He dialed again. Still nothing. She saw it, he muttered to himself. She saw it and she didn't pick up. He was a man who always got in. Until now. Theo leaned back in the leather seat, his eyes hard as the rain blurred Miami's skyline. He dialed a number he trusted. "Neil," he said, voice clipped. "I need a name run." A beat of silence. "Whose?" "Elizabeth Sue Boyle." The words left no room for discussion. "I want everything. Her family, her address, where she studies, where she eats, where she sleeps, who she talks to. Even the hospital records if you can dig that far. Nothing gets missed." "Understood," Neil replied simply. Theo ended the call, his jaw tight, thumb lingering on his phone. A second later, he typed a message. "Call me. I need to hear your voice. If you don't, I'll find you. You know I can. I have your name, Liz. That's enough." He stared at the screen, chest tightening. This wasn't business. This wasn't strategy. It was something darker, hungrier, an ache that wouldn't let him breathe until she was near. Morning light spilled across the glass walls of Theo's penthouse, the city stretching toward the ocean in the sharp lines of steel and blue. He stood by the window, coffee in hand, the other arm folded across his chest. His eyes weren't on the view. They were distant, heavy with the same name that hadn't left his mind for weeks. His phone buzzed. "Neil," Theo answered without greeting. "I traced the number you gave me," Neil said smoothly. "Pulled the IMEI. There's an app on your phone now. You'll see where she is down to the street corner." Theo set his mug aside, jaw tightening as he unlocked his screen. A blinking red dot pulsed on the map. University of Miami. Medical school. For the first time in days, a smile ghosted across his face. "I owe you," he said, voice low. Theo grabbed his keys. By the time Liz stepped out through the campus gates, sunlight catching in her dark hair, Theo's car was already waiting at the curb. He leaned against the hood, immaculate in his suit, green eyes fixed on her like he'd been carved into the spot. Liz froze, clutching her bag. "Theo?" Her voice cracked with disbelief. He didn't move, didn't blink. "You weren't going to call me back," he said, voice like steel wrapped in silk. "So I came to get you." Liz's jaw tightened as she shook her head, anger flashing in her eyes. "You can't do this, Theo. You can't keep showing up at every corner of my life. If I wanted to come back to you, I would have." She spun on her heel, walking fast in the opposite direction. Theo's stride was longer. He caught up, cutting her off in seconds. His voice was low, but the tension in it burned. "What's going on, Liz? Are you trying to drive me insane? Because it's working." She tried to sidestep him, but he grabbed her hand, not roughly, but with a grip that wouldn't be shaken off. "Come on," he said, tugging her toward the curb. "We're getting lunch." Liz let out a sharp, disbelieving laugh, rolling her eyes as he opened the car door. "My father doesn't even treat me like this, Theo." Theo leaned closer, his breath brushing her ear as he guided her inside. "I'm not your father, Liz. I'm a man who's losing his mind over you." Theo pulled up in front of one of Miami's most elegant restaurants. The valet opened his door with a polished smile. "Welcome, Mr. DeVries." Liz stepped out hesitantly, tugging at the hem of her floral dress, the straps of her backpack digging into her shoulders. She felt completely out of place among the gleaming glass doors and polished marble. But Theo didn't even blink. He looked at her like she belonged right there beside him. She bit her lip, fighting a laugh, and caught him watching her with that amused smile. Theo's grin only widened. He swirled the glass of white wine in his hand once they sat down, leaning in with mischief dancing in his eyes. "A girl who actually runs from me." His chuckle was low. "That's interesting." Liz straightened in her chair, suddenly serious. "There's something I need to tell you." Theo leaned back lazily, as if nothing she could say could rattle him. "I'm married," she said flatly. For 3 full seconds, Theo didn't move. Then he threw his head back and laughed. "Yeah, sure you are." Liz didn't smile. Her eyes didn't flinch. "I'm dying. 3 months left." The laughter drained from Theo's face instantly. His jaw locked, green eyes hard. "Don't," he said sharply. "Don't ever joke about that." Liz inhaled, then dropped the next blow with a defiant edge. "There's someone else. Someone I love." Theo smirked, but it didn't reach his eyes this time. "Yeah, sure. You really made that clear in my bed. Right there. In my arms." His tone dripped with irony, but his eyes flashed as he caught the memory, teeth sinking into his lower lip. "Trust me, Liz. I've been with enough women to know when one doesn't love me. That's just never happened." She rolled her eyes. "What do you think is going to happen, Theo? You'll hold my hand and parade me around at your high society parties. They'd never accept me, and the truth is, I don't want them either." Theo pressed his thumb to his lips, eyes darkening. "No one questions my choices. No one dares to push me out for who I let into my life. I'm too powerful for that." Liz scoffed, curling her lip with mocking sweetness. "Arrogant much. And wow, such amazing friendships you must have. I'm thrilled for you." Then she leaned in, her voice quieter but sharper, cutting through his confidence. "The only thing I know is this: you'll be the one who hurts me. Maybe you won't even mean to, but it'll happen. and when it does, I'll be the one bleeding. That's why we have to end this. Now." Theo's playful mask slipped. His tone hardened. "Hurt you? Liz, I'd tear anyone apart before I let that happen." Liz let out a breath, half laugh, half defeat. "You don't even know me, Theo. And look at this, like I'm the one in my 30s, the one who should be thinking all this through. Isn't that supposed to be you?" Theo chuckled softly, reaching across the table. He tucked a loose strand of hair behind Liz's ear, his touch lingering just a second longer than it needed to. "I think about everything, Liz. You just don't know me well enough yet, but we'll have plenty of time for that. Tell me about your dreams. Med school, that's impressive. What do you want to do with it?" Liz leaned back in her chair, her eyes steady on him. "Become a surgeon." A genuine smile curved Theo's lips. "Because of your surgery?" Her breath hitched, but she nodded. "Yeah, I know what helplessness feels like, what it's like to wait, knowing every second could be your last. I don't want to chase money like everyone else. I want to be the kind of surgeon who gives people their lives back." Liz's words hung in the quiet air between them. Theo didn't answer right away. He just looked at her, really looked, like he was seeing something he hadn't known he was searching for. A faint smile tugged at his lips. His hand slid an inch across the table, stopping short, as though the urge to touch her warred with the discipline to hold back. He drew in a slow breath, the kind that settled in his chest and refused to leave. And for once, Theo de Vries said nothing. His silence said it all. Liz's tone sharpened, her eyes steady on his. "So, this girlfriend of yours, Clarice, does she even know I exist?" Theo froze for a second, then shook his head. "Clarice isn't my girlfriend, she's my ex. Now, we're just friends." Liz let out a humorless laugh. "Friends? That's not how it looked. You don't seem very finished with each other." She pushed her hair back, frustration flashing across her face. "I can't be part of this circus. I already have school. I already work. My time isn't mine, as it is. What do you expect, Theo? You'll pick me up from class every day, drop me at work, then we spend the night tearing each other apart in your bed. That's the plan." Theo's jaw tightened, his voice low but steady. "Why are you making this harder than it has to be?" He leaned in, eyes burning into hers. "You're scared, aren't you? That's what all this act is. Fear." Liz's lips parted, but she said nothing. Theo shook his head slowly, almost like he was chastising her. "You don't have to be afraid, Liz. Not with me. I know exactly what I feel. I'm not some reckless kid running on impulse. This is real, serious, and I'm not letting you go." His voice dropped lower, rough with conviction. "You're mine now. And I swear I'll love you until my last breath. Nothing and no one will ever touch you. Not while I'm here." That afternoon, Theo pulled up in front of Liz's neighborhood. She smirked, tugging her backpack higher on her shoulder. "Well, here we are, my penthouse." She spread her arms toward the worn apartment block. "Better take a good look. Think you can handle rolling up here in your shiny car every day?" Theo reached out, his fingers brushing along her cheek. His gaze was unshaken. "You have no idea what I can handle." Liz turned and slipped inside the building. But before the door closed, she glanced back once more. Theo was still there, waiting, watching. And in her chest, butterflies tangled with knives, fluttering and cutting all at once. How could she feel both? How could she survive this? For 2 nights, it had been the same rhythm. Calls, stolen texts, and Theo's car pulling up outside her work like he owned the curb. Liz told herself she wasn't waiting for him. The lie was almost convincing. Now, the 3rd night, the car idled in front of her building. Theo leaned one arm against the wheel, the other stretching over the back of her seat. The streetlight cut across his jaw when he turned toward her. "Pack a bag tomorrow night," he said. No preamble, just command. "I'll pick you up before dawn. 2 days. Just us." Her head whipped toward him. "What? A trip? I have to study this weekend." "I respect that," he said smoothly. "But if you're studying anatomy—" His mouth tugged into a half-smile. "I'd make an excellent model," Liz groaned, sinking against the seat. "God, you're impossible." He only smirked, watching her like he already knew the answer. Liz couldn't stop herself from wanting him. God knew she'd tried. But even as she gave in, a part of her mind stayed haunted by Clarice and what she could still do. Yet, when the wheels of Theo's private jet touched down on a strip of turquoise and white sand, Liz shoved those thoughts aside the moment wheels lifted off. Turks and Caicos, the ride from the airfield blurred into a dream of salt air and palm trees until they reached the hotel, and when Theo unlocked their suite, Liz stopped dead in the doorway. The place wasn't just a room, it was a world. A private infinity pool spilled into the horizon, sunbeds gleaming like they'd been carved for gods. Beyond that, through sheer glass doors, stretched the biggest bed she'd ever seen, an expanse of white sheets that looked dangerous in all the ways she shouldn't be thinking about. She turned slowly, eyes narrowing at him in mock accusation. "You're good at this, you know," she said. Her voice edged with a reluctant smile. "Theodore de Vries, professional heart surgeon / master of impressing women." Theo's grin was lazy, smug. "I told you, Liz. I always get what I want. And I'll make damn sure you get everything you've ever dreamed of, too." The days blurred into something out of a dream. They kissed in the pool, warm water lapping at their skin as Theo's hands slid through her hair. On the beach, their fingers laced together, footprints trailing behind them like proof they'd actually been there. And at night, the nights burned, wrapped in sheets, wrapped in each other. Theo's desire was fierce, but so was his tenderness. It should have been perfect. And yet, Liz couldn't shake it, the quiet pull of dread in the pit of her stomach. Every laugh, every kiss, every moment in his arms felt too fragile, as if it could all vanish with a single snap. Still, when Theo touched her, when he looked at her like she was the only thing that had ever mattered, she let herself fall. Against reason, against fear, she chose him, even if it meant breaking later. They lay sprawled across the massive bed, sheets kicked somewhere to the floor. Liz's skin still glowed from the heat of him, her breath soft but uneven. Theo's fingers traced the thin scar between her breasts, reverent, as if it was something sacred. "Were you terrified?" His voice was low, almost careful. "That they wouldn't find a heart in time?" Liz blinked up at him, eyes shimmering. "Yes, but more than that. I was terrified of what I saw in my parents' faces. Their fear was worse than my own." She swallowed, her gaze drifting toward the ceiling. "I made peace with the idea of dying. I always believed energy doesn't disappear. It just changes form, finds a way back. But them," her voice cracked, barely holding, "they couldn't have survived losing me." Theo leaned down, brushing his mouth over hers. Slow, almost tender, as if sealing her words with a kiss. "This thing you believe, about energy not disappearing," he murmured against her lips. "Tell me more about it." "It makes me want to believe, too. Maybe I should." Liz drew in a shaky breath, her eyes shining with something deeper than fear. "I think our spirit, our soul, if you want to call it that, either shifts into another form of existence, or it lingers in the hearts of those we've left behind. The body returns to the earth, but the spirit, It stays. In memories, in love, in the small ways we've changed people's lives. That's why, when someone says they still feel a loved one's presence, it's not just imagination. They really are there. Not in one body anymore, but scattered across everyone they ever touched. Theo's gaze lingered on her chest then, almost without meaning to. Just for a second too long. He swallowed hard, looking away quickly, his voice hushed. So, in some way, we never really lose them. Liz's eyes softened, searching his. And you, Theo? When your mom died, were you scared? His jaw tightened. He swallowed hard before answering. I'm an only child too. My dad was always working, but my mom, she was everything. My best friend, cool, sharp, funny as hell. His voice dipped, raw. When she was gone, I thought my world had ended. But people, he let out a breathless laugh, bitter and amazed all at once. We're tougher than we realize. Life just kept moving. He looked back at Liz then, his hand cupping her scar like it was something fragile. His voice dropped to a near whisper. But losing someone I love again, I don't think I could survive that. Not now. Not you. Theo's eyes drifted past her, as if he were watching something that only lived in memory. You know something. His voice was low, thoughtful. My mom's organs were donated after the accident. My father hated the idea, fought it, but she had signed the papers years before. It was her choice, her way of living on. He paused, his thumb tracing absent circles over Liz's skin. Maybe that energy you believe in, that spark, maybe a piece of her is still out there, in someone's heartbeat, in someone's breath. He looked back at her, a faint, almost broken smile tugging at his lips. A part of her might still be alive right now. Doesn't that sound possible? Theo's lips brushed the tears from her cheeks, his voice almost apologetic. I didn't mean to upset you. Liz shook her head quickly, forcing a small smile, though her chest ached. I know, she whispered. He pressed his face into the hollow of her chest, holding her as if the world outside no longer existed. Liz turned her head away, her gaze fixed on the far corner of the room. The truth sat heavy on her tongue, burning to be spoken. If she told him, if she told Theo what she knew, they might never let each other go. Maybe she owed him that. Maybe he deserved it. Her breath caught. Not yet. She wasn't ready. On the drive back from their short getaway, the city lights slowly replaced the turquoise sea they'd left behind. Theo pulled up in front of Liz's apartment building, but didn't kill the engine. His eyes stayed on her, unreadable. Elizabeth Boyle, he began, his voice low but steady. Don't misunderstand me. You're proud, stubborn. God knows that's clear. But you don't have to keep working there. I could take care of the bills, make things easier for your family. Liz's smile vanished, her chest tightening. No, Theo, I'll never take your money. He dipped his chin in a slow nod, as if he'd expected that answer. Still, his gaze didn't soften. Look, I'm a man who makes plans. In 6 months, we could be married. You'd stay in school. Your parents would breathe easier. That's all I want. She shook her head sharply, but he only raised a brow, calm and unshaken. Don't panic. I said could. What I want is to marry you. 6 months, a year, 5 years, whenever you're ready. I'm not asking you to give up anything. Just don't see me as a stranger. I'm here, Liz, and I'm not going anywhere. Liz swallowed, his words pressing against the wall she'd built. Theo, we've only known each other 10 days. It's been a month, and 10 days. His mouth curved, but his tone was certain, almost fierce. Sometimes you spend 4 years with someone and never feel sure. And sometimes 10 days is enough to know you've found the right person. I'm sure, Liz. I've never been more sure in my life. The only decision left is yours." Her chest ached, torn between fear and the fire in his eyes. She leaned in, pressed a trembling kiss to his lips, then pulled away quickly. With her small bag in hand, Liz slipped out of the car. Theo watched as she walked toward the building, his jaw tight, his knuckles white around the steering wheel. And Liz, heart racing, didn't dare look back. Liz dropped her bag by the door and kissed her parents goodnight before slipping into her room. Sleep came heavy, but not deep. Her dreams a blur of turquoise water, Theo's voice, and Clarice's warning. The next morning, sunlight was already high when she finally stirred. She padded into the kitchen, still rubbing her eyes, and froze. "Mom?" Liz blinked. "You're home. You didn't go to work." Her mother sat at the small table, still in her uniform blouse, but her face was pale, her hands trembling around a mug of untouched coffee. "I did go, sweetheart," she said softly, not quite meeting Liz's eyes, only to find out I don't have a job anymore. They handed me a check, 2 weeks' pay, and told me I was done. No reason, nothing, just like that. Liz felt the blood drain from her face, her stomach turning cold. Of course, it must be. Clarice. Her threat echoed in Liz's skull like a scream. 1 week, Elizabeth. 1 week. Or your family pays the price. And today made exactly 7 days. The Turks and Keiko's getaway had been a dream, but Clarice had known. She always knew. Liz gripped the back of a chair, knuckles white, forcing herself to steady her voice before her mother noticed. I'm sure it's just a mistake, Mom. They'll fix it." But inside, panic was already clawing at her chest. Liz rushed back into her room, pulling clothes from her closet with shaking hands. An ordinary dress, nothing that mattered. Her thoughts were louder than the sound of the zipper she yanked shut on her bag. There's no other way. She could feel it in her chest, like her scar had split open again. Clarice had already taken her mother's job. Her father would be next. And then their home. It had always been a game she couldn't win. She'd told herself Theo was hers, but the truth was, he never really belonged to her. He was a dream, one she had stolen for a handful of nights. And dreams always end. If she stayed silent, her family would pay the price. If she spoke, she might lose Theo forever. Her reflection in the mirror looked back at her, pale and determined, eyes burning with unshed tears. Better me than them. She grabbed her bag and headed for the door. There was only one place she could go. Theo's office. She would tell him everything. About Clarice, about the deal, about the lies. And then she would walk. Liz stopped at the base of the glass tower, its steel frame slicing into the Miami sky. Above the revolving doors, bold silver letters gleamed. DeVries Enterprises. Her stomach flipped. Her chest tightened so hard she pressed a hand to the faint scar beneath her dress. This was Theo's world, cold, vast, intimidating. And she was about to walk straight into it. Liz smoothed the hem of her black dress, casual for a lobby like this. She tucked her hair nervously behind her ear, inhaled once, and pushed through the doors. The lobby swallowed her whole. High ceilings, sleek black stone, and a wall of glass that reflected back a girl who looked far more fragile than she wanted to be. Her heart pounded so loud, she wondered if the security guard behind the front desk could hear it. Still, she straightened her spine. She wasn't here to belong. She was here to tell the truth. The elevator chimed and slid open onto the executive floor. Liz's heels clicked against polished marble as she approached the reception desk. "My name is Elizabeth Boyle," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "Mr. DeVries is expecting me." The secretary offered a polite but thin smile. "I'm afraid Mr. DeVries has a guest at the moment, miss." Liz nodded quickly, but her pulse was hammering. She turned down the wide hallway lined with frosted glass doors, each one marked in sharp black letters. That's when she heard it. Voices, low but cutting, seeping from a door that hadn't closed all the way. Her steps slowed. She knew that voice. Clarice. Liz froze at the gold plaque glinting in front of her. Theodore DeVries. CEO. Her chest squeezed. She pressed her palm against the door, already cracked open, and the words inside gutted her. Theo! She's not who you think she is. I paid her. With my money. I put her in your path. Liz's breath broke, her vision blurred. Before she realized what she was doing, she pushed the door open. Theo stood behind his desk, a stack of glossy photographs clenched in one hand. His jaw was tight, his eyes burning with a fury she had never seen before, directed not at her, but at Clarice. Clarice's smirk vanished when both she and Theo looked toward the doorway, where Liz stood trembling, eyes shining with tears. Clarice's eyes gleamed the moment she spotted Liz in the doorway. Well, well, the little slut herself, she spat, striding across the office in 3 sharp steps. Her hand clamped around Liz's arm, yanking her inside like a prize dragged to center stage. She flung a handful of glossy photographs across the desk, the images scattering like knives. Why don't you tell him the story, Elizabeth? Liz's gaze dropped. Her stomach hollowed. The pictures, her and Clarice outside the boutique, the argument, the bundle of bills shoved into her bag. Frozen moments, twisted into evidence. Her breath came in shallow bursts. Theo! Her voice cracked, barely air. I came here to tell you it's not what it looks like. But Theo's eyes on her were unfamiliar, cold, as if a stranger had stepped into his skin. That silence cut deeper than Clarice's poison. I tried to stay away from you, Liz whispered, her chest heaving, because she threatened me. Clarice, she wouldn't let me go. Theo's jaw flexed. His teeth caught his lower lip as if holding back an eruption. The silence was unbearable. It split her wide open. Finally, his voice came low, steady, deadly. Both of you. Get out. Leave me, now. Liz flinched as though struck. Clarice, on the other hand, exploded. Theo, look at her. She's a liar. She used you. I did this to protect you. You think anyone can love you the way I do? You think she can? Her voice pitched higher, desperate, clawing for him. No one will ever love you like me. The voices in the room blurred into static. Liz's pulse thundered in her ears, then faltered. The edges of her vision smeared into gray. She staggered back 2 steps, her hand clutching at her chest. Her eyes found Theo's, pleading, desperate, and she reached an arm toward him as though he was the only thing holding her to this world. Liz! His chair scraped violently against the floor as he lurched forward. Panic sharpened his voice. Liz, what's happening? But she couldn't answer. Breath deserted her lungs, the pain in her chest detonating, rippling through every vein until even standing became impossible. The last thing she heard was Theo's voice, raw, terrified, calling her name. And then, mercifully, the world went dark. Theo's voice cracked as the EMTs worked over Liz's body, wires and monitors flashing to life. She had a transplant 4 years ago, a heart transplant. His words tumbled out in frantic bursts. Check her bag. Her meds are in there. Please, you have to. She's been through this before. She can't. The paramedic gave a curt nod, rifling through her purse as they secured Liz onto the gurney. Theo's hand stayed on her arm until they had to lift her into the ambulance. He climbed in after her, chest heaving. Is she going to be okay? He demanded, his voice rough, pleading. But the medic didn't answer, just adjusted an oxygen mask and shouted vitals to his partner. One of the medics shot him a sharp look. It's critical. Please don't interfere. Sir, step out of the ambulance. Theo pressed his palms to his temples, fingers dragging through his hair. His composure, his control, shattered into raw terror. For fuck's sake! No, he muttered, As if bargaining with the air, Austin appeared at the door, wide-eyed, helpless. What the hell is happening, Theo? She was sick? Liz was sick? Theo barely looked at him. His jaw clenched, his focus anchored on the pale girl fighting for air. I'm going to the hospital. Call her family. Use her phone. Find them. Someone has to tell them. His voice broke. But I can't leave her side. The doors slammed shut, and a second later the siren wailed into the night, carrying Liz away. Theo stood frozen on the curb, helpless, the echo of her hand still burning against his own. Theo's hands clenched the wheel so hard his knuckles blanched. The wail of the ambulance sirens faded into the distance, leaving only the pounding of his own pulse in his ears. His phone lit up. Neil, not now. Listen to me, Theo. You need to hear this. His friend's voice was sharp, urgent, about that girl you asked me to dig into. Something came up today that you didn't see in the file I sent. Honestly, your father didn't want to know back then. But now, since you're asking, you need to hear it. Theo's grip on the wheel tightened. What are you talking about, Neil? What the hell does my father have to do with Liz? Not your father, Neil said quietly. Your mother. Theo's stomach dropped. My mother? What the hell? It was her heart, Theo. The transplant. 4 years ago. The recipient's name was Elizabeth Sue Boyle. She was 18 at the time. When I saw the name line up with the girl you gave me, I went back through the medical records. It's her. It's the same person. Theo's throat closed. His vision blurred. He didn't even wait for Neil to finish. He killed the call and pressed the phone face down against the seat. Tears burned his eyes as he slammed his foot on the gas. Don't you dare leave me, Liz Boyle, he rasped into the empty car. His voice cracked. Don't you fucking dare. Theo sat in the sterile hospital corridor, elbows on his knees, his head buried in his hands. The hum of fluorescent lights overhead and the muffled rush of doctors passing by blurred into nothing. Inside his chest, everything screamed. From the very first second I saw her, I knew. That pull, that impossible closeness, like I'd been waiting for her long before we even met. I told myself it was madness, just lust, just an obsession, but it was more. God, it was always more. He saw it again, clear as if it were happening now. Liz turning in that boutique, sunlight catching in her hair, the scar on her chest, his fingers brushing it the first night, that strange ache in his gut he couldn't name. The way she whispered about energy never dying, about pieces of us carrying on. She knew. Maybe she didn't know how, but she felt it. That the heartbeat I fell asleep on that night was already a part of me. That my mother's love hadn't vanished. It had found a way back to me. Through her. Theo's throat burned as he pressed his palms into his eyes. No wonder I couldn't stay away. No wonder every touch felt like coming home. It was her. It was always her. The sound of his own ragged breath filled the silence. He straightened slowly, lifting his head, eyes bloodshot but blazing now, locked on the double doors of the emergency room. Elizabeth Sue Boyle, he whispered, his voice breaking. You don't get to leave me. Not after all this time. Not after everything that brought you back to me. Not after you carried her heart, our heart, all these years. He swallowed hard, forcing the words past the lump in his throat. You're mine, Liz. Not because I claimed you, but because life chose us. Because fate shoved us into each other's arms and dared us to fight it. So fight, God's sake, fight for me. He leaned back against the wall, fists clenched, every nerve burning. And for the first time in his life, Theodore de Vries, the man who thought he could bend the world, realized there was only one thing he could not command. Her heartbeat. An hour had crawled by. Theo stood slumped against the cold white wall, his eyes bloodshot, his hand still pressed against his mouth as if holding back the storm inside him. Liz's voice echoed in his head sharp as glass. "The only thing I know is that I'll be the one hurt. Whether you mean to or not, I'll be the one bleeding from this, and that's why we need to stop right now." The memory landed like a knife. The elevator doors opened. Her parents rushed down the corridor, her mother already sobbing into her father's chest, clinging to him as if her body couldn't stand on its own. Theo's chest tightened. He wanted to go to them, to say, "I'll fix this. I'll protect her. I swear it." But his feet wouldn't move. At last, the doctor emerged. His voice carried the weight of long nights and hard truths, but this time it offered breath instead of finality. "She's past the danger. The worst is behind us," he said gently. "But her heart is under enormous strain. Transplant patients remain fragile for years. She'll need rest, no stress, a quiet life. If she follows that, she'll be okay." Her mother broke into grateful sobs, throwing her arms around the doctor, murmuring "thank you" like a prayer. Theo exhaled a jagged breath, the first in what felt like hours. His shoulders sagged with relief, but it felt like relief borrowed on credit, something he had no right to cash in. When her mother turned, she caught the moment in his face, the raw, trembling release of a man who had nearly lost everything. She stepped closer, voice trembling but kind. "You brought her here, didn't you? She was at your company? Some interview?" She shook her head, tears running freely. "How can I ever thank you, sir? If you hadn't gotten her here when you did..." Her voice cracked. "My daughter is a miracle. Twice now she's been given life. First by the gift of another heart, blessed be the soul who gave it, and now by you. You gave us a third chance." Theo's throat closed, his breath stuttering out of him. He tried to speak, but the words scraped raw. "I'm not just her friend," he whispered, almost to himself, then louder, broken but certain. "I love her." Her mother's eyes widened, her hand flying to her lips. Behind her, Liz's father had inched closer, staring at him as if trying to decide whether to believe it. Theo's lips parted, but the rest of the words wouldn't come. Shame, grief, and love all collided in his chest. Finally, he shook his head, stepping back. I'm sorry," he managed, his voice hoarse. And before either of them could stop him, Theo turned and strode down the corridor, his footsteps echoing against the tile until the sound disappeared. Liz's lashes fluttered open, the sterile white ceiling coming into focus. For a heartbeat, she didn't know where she was, until the soft weight of her mother's hand smoothed her hair. Her parents' tear-stained faces hovered above her, both smiling through exhaustion. "Sweetheart," her mother whispered, voice trembling with relief. "You're safe now. You're going to be okay." Liz's lips curved faintly, but her eyes, almost unconsciously, scanned the room, searching, hoping. The one face she longed to see wasn't there, and something inside her ached. Her mother noticed. She leaned closer, brushing Liz's cheek with trembling fingers. "There's someone else who's been here too. He hasn't left in 2 days. Blaming himself, tearing himself apart. But Lizzie, I saw it in his eyes. He loves you, with everything he has. Do you want to see him?" Tears welled in Liz's eyes. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Yes, Mama. I want to see him." Her father, standing tall but unsteady, reached down and squeezed her hand. His voice was rough, protective. "I'm not as soft-hearted as your mother, Lizzie. He seems like a decent man, but if he hurts you again, if you so much as call my name, I'll deal with him myself. I don't care who he is." Liz managed a small smile, her throat tight with emotion. She squeezed his hand. "I know, Dad." As he turned toward the door, she caught the words he muttered under his breath, words that made her chest tighten. "Our miracle son or not, no one gets to break my girl." Her breath caught. "Our miracle son?" The phrase twisted inside her, but before she could ask, the door opened. Theo stepped in. His tall frame seemed smaller somehow, shoulders bowed, dark circles bruised beneath his eyes. He hesitated at the threshold as if unsure he had the right to enter. Then, slowly, he crossed the room and lowered himself into the chair beside her bed. For a long moment he just looked at her, drinking her in, as if making sure she was really here. Liz swallowed hard, her heart thudding weakly in her chest, her lips parted. "Theo, you know, don't you?" His jaw tightened. His eyes, those sharp, relentless eyes, softened, and he gave a single, solemn nod. Theo exhaled shakily, brushing his thumb over the back of her hand. "You knew," he whispered, a bitter smile ghosting his lips. "And you didn't tell me. I've spent 2 days trying to understand why, and now I think I do." Her tears spilled over, and her voice broke as she whispered, "Because it wouldn't have been fair. If you'd known from the beginning that I carry your mother's heart, you wouldn't have seen me. You would have only seen her. And I couldn't live with that. And if I had told you, you never would have let me go. But I had to walk away. I was trapped inside a choice I never wanted to make." She drew a shaky breath, her chest rising unevenly. "Clarice, she threatened me, Theo. I tried to give the money back, but my family was drowning in debt. I didn't even know who you really were until that terrace party. That night, I saw your name, DeVries. I knew my donor was Janet DeVries, but her family had refused contact. Then that night, Clarice, she showed me your picture, said your name, and I wanted to run. I wanted to disappear, but then you found me, and when you looked at me, I felt something in my chest, like my heart recognized you before my mind did. It terrified me." Her voice cracked, her tears falling freely now. "I'm sorry, Theo. I tried to stay away." Theo leaned down, pressing a kiss to her trembling hands. His voice was thick, breaking. "I know, and I don't blame you, not for any of it. Clarice doesn't matter anymore. None of it does. If anything," his laugh was raw, almost a sob. "If anything, I should thank her for pushing you toward me." Liz's lips curved, fragile but real. "Nothing else matters now, not anymore." Theo drew in a long breath, his body trembling with the weight of everything he felt. "You already know what I am, Liz. I plan, I calculate, I control everything. And while you were sleeping, I realized one thing I couldn't control was this. Us. But I can decide what I want. So I handled a few small things." Her brows drew together. "Small things." Theo gave a faint, almost boyish smile. "I spoke to your father. I asked for you." Liz's breath hitched. "You? What?" "He said if this is what you want, if you choose me, then I have his blessing." Slowly, Theo reached into his jacket, pulled out a velvet box, and opened it. The diamond inside caught the dim hospital light, gleaming like starlight. "So now, all that's left is your answer. Can I put this on your finger?" Liz's eyes widened. "Theo, I'm lying in a hospital bed." "I know." His voice cracked, but he leaned closer, eyes burning with conviction. "But I almost lost you, and I won't waste another second. You believe energy never dies, that it only changes form. Maybe that's why we're here. Maybe it's her heart that brought you to me. All I know is this: every moment with you is a gift, and I want forever with you. So if you'll let me, if you'll say yes, this ring belongs on your hand." Liz's tears fell faster now, but her smile was radiant. She nodded, breathless. "Yes, Theo, yes, but—" She laughed through her tears. Theo didn't let her finish. With hands still unsteady from everything they had endured, he slid the ring onto her finger. It caught the light, shimmering like a promise sealed in eternity. "But I have conditions." Theo's shoulders shook with a laugh. The first real one in days. Of course you do. Go on. I'm going to be a surgeon. Nothing, no one will stop me. You'll support me, always. With all that I am, Theo whispered, pressing his forehead to hers. And this, she glanced at the ring. This is an engagement, not marriage. Not yet. I'll say yes when I'm ready. He kissed her, tender and reverent. Then I'll wait. A year, 5 years, I don't care. Just don't ever walk away from me again. Theo's hand trembled as he lifted it, then slowly, gently, laid his palm over the scar, above Liz's heart. His voice broke into a whisper, thick with emotion. Thank you, Mom. She's everything I never knew I needed. Liz covered his hand with her own, tears spilling freely down her cheeks. Her voice was soft, reverent. Thank you, Janet, for giving me a second chance, for giving us this chance. Theo bent closer, his forehead against hers, his whisper steady as a vow. And we'll honor it for the rest of our lives and beyond. Until this form ends, until our energy finds each other again. I'll take care of her, Mom. Always. Liz's story is fiction, but the gift that saved her life is not. Organ donation turns endings into new beginnings. If you believe in second chances, please consider being someone's miracle. Thank you. Watching this story all the way to the end. Now let me know. Do you think fate really brought them together? And do you believe they'll get their happy ending? Please leave your thoughts in the comments. And if this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe. Your support means the world to me.